you're rolling.
So it's to get to Lasqueti from Vancouver, it's a trek, right? So
Yeah.
John picks us up in his little van. We go over to the ferry, a couple hours on the ferry, the most beautiful bay you can imagine, and snow-capped mountains in every
Wow.
direction. It's exquisite. It's so beautiful you don't believe it the first couple of days you're out there.
Really?
You go, that must be a painted backdrop. After about a week you go, wow, that's real. It's that extraordinary. And then you get off and you drive again on the big island. There's an island about the size of Long Island stretching up the coast, and it's got mountains on it, I don't know, 10,000 feet high at least. Snow-capped peaks all year round, and everywhere else covered with trees. So it's forest city, British Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just beautiful out there. So John takes us. Then we have to get another ferry to drive an hour or two on the big island, get another ferry for an hour or so, and then we walk up this road for a mile, and there's blackberries on bushes on each side of the road. So as you walk up the road, you're eating blackberries from nature, right, like this, right? Mm-hmm. So we get up there, this huge house, and there's 6 couples living in the house, 12 people living there. And they have a big fireplace with a fire going and so on. And some of them are fairly nice to me, but I felt very uncomfortable. Didn't feel like I fell in and fit in. And my girlfriend had bought me a new shirt, and it was a hair shirt. It was miserable there. So the next morning I said to John, I don't like it. He had wanted me to rebuild a cabin. And I looked at the cabin and I said, the cabin's too far gone, it's going to cost you too much to rebuild it. Anyway, I don't like your friends. You see, what a sweetheart I was, right? I was terrible. But John, he's such a gentleman. He said, oh, well, just so that doesn't affect our relationship. Wow, I didn't even know we had a relationship, so I said, no. And he said, well, I think it's a little too soon to make that judgment, but I'll take you back. So right away, pack up your stuff, right? And me and my girlfriend's going to drive us all the way back to Vancouver because I don't want the job. No argument, no, just so it doesn't affect our relationship. Wonderful, man. So we're on the way back. And we get, first a little ferry, then we drive, then we get on the big ferry, and we leave Barbara up in the lounge on the ferry having a coffee. He says, come on downstairs, and we go down to the car deck, and there's a thing, there's no entry. John opens it, and we go. And we're on a little balcony overlooking the ocean, and he pulls out a hash pipe, with, if you look down in it, it's like looking in the boiler of a locomotive, right? He fills it up with crumbs of hash and hands it to me. So here we are on our own little private balcony, take a choke and collapse. I'm hanging there, just about ready to lose my knees from out from underneath me. And I'm looking out at the water. This was a key moment in my life because I realized I'd just been in paradise and walked out. Right? I mean, nobody'd been really rude to me there or anything. In fact, one guy had been real nice, and just people kind of ignored me. Nobody's been rude to me or anything. And then berries dripping off the fruit dripping off the trees. And I was walking away from it. And then, simultaneously, I had this insight that on the West Coast, people don't talk much. They just get to the point. They don't go blah, 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 blah. They go, here's the point, right? So I started to make a big speech, and I realized that. So I just said, I didn't have much breath left after this choke on the pipe. I said, John, can I go back? Get to the point, right? Didn't explain a thing. And this was a key moment because he said, oh, I wouldn't want to go through that again. I says, no, you won't go through it again. And then, talk about elegance, tact, right? Then he says, John is such a gentleman, he says, well, that's such an important decision, Shayne. I think you're the one who has to make it. Not, okay, I'll let you go back, right? I mean, just elegance total, right? So we get in the car, turn around, pay another. He's paying for all these ferries and everything. Turn around, go back, and I spent the next 7 months there on Muscogee Island. And what a place! I mean, it was like in a movie. You get off. There was no electricity, so at night you just had hurricane lamps, kerosene lamps and fireplaces. That's all. And, all the guys were in jeans, and the women were all in big skirts. For some reason, the only time I ever saw the women in jeans was when they had a wedding, and everyone came over from Vancouver. Then the girls put on their jeans to look real hip and with it, right? So when they left, they were back to their granny outfits. So you could have been in an 1890s movies, Well, what'd you do today, Dennis? Oh, we went and saw the Darwins, and then we drove around looking for deer, and it was like going back in history, you understand? And my girlfriend and I lived out in the orchard because they had no room in the house for us, the 6 couples. So we had John's tent out in the orchard, and it was nothing wrong with that, It's beautiful weather. It was right in the middle of the summer. And everyone ran around half naked because we'd hit a lake. We had a pickup truck. We hit a lake, and everybody just strip off and jump in. Nobody thought to bring a swimsuit to Muscogee like me. So no, there were no swimsuits. No one even thought of them, right? So I saw a lot of naked people on Muscogee. So that was nice. And all the wives, all our girlfriends, they were all young, beautiful women in their early 20s. So you had 6 beautiful naked women running around. If everyone took a shower in the yard, there was just a tube coming down out in the yard. And you'd see these beautiful women having their showers stark naked every day. It was one of the joys of life on Muscogee was being naked, right? Not just women either. I was there recently, and Merrick was cleaning off John's tractor. He'd just take his clothes off first. Why get your clothes dirty, right? And if a car came by, hey, how you doing? It's like that on this island, right? So, and it's just the idea of living without electricity. The only hardship without electricity basically was the washing, because it took up muscle work. And the girls had an old kind of lever washing machine. They had this kind of thing. 2 girls get on this lever, and they could kind of move it around a little bit. They have to do that for a half hour. That was real hard work and so on. They had to do it. That's all we had. But everything else you could do with a generator or with a power saw or whatever. And the deer. I bumped into a deer in the orchard one night in the dark, right? And he'd froze, and I was walking, and when I bumped into him, he jumped, and I heard his muscles snap like bowstrings. Bong! And then, boom, 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 he must have jumped 30, 40 feet. So it was just wonderful living out there in the orchard and working on this cabin. And the cabin was totally just like this. Everything had fallen down, see. And Ed Darwin, the kind of old man of the island, he said, "What kind of sills you got on that cabin?" I didn't even know what a sill was, the usual kind. I didn't know shit about cabins. But I just built a house. I'd been in a kind of ashram or a religious community where they shared everything in Woodstock, New York. And I'd helped a carpenter build a 2-story nursery, so I knew how to handle a hammer and a saw, do all that. So I just measure out. This was a stand-up log kind of cabin, right? Palisade. So I take 1 log at a time, and I tell the boys, grown-up boys, all right, I need to have a log, 7.2 inches long and this fat, and off they go into the woods and come back with just the log I needed in time for lunch. Now we drink some blackberry wine and smoke a J or whatever, go back to work. It was like living 100 years ago, or go hunting or go fishing. And the water's there. We weren't on the water, most people were, but we were up on the crest of the hill. And we had a boat down there, but we didn't go out often. But when we did, a couple of the girls, a couple of the guys would go out. They'd come back with 150 pounds of salmon, Cousteau said it was one of the last 3 natural places on Earth, right? You get 4 or 5, 30, 40-pound salmon in an hour. We didn't even know how to fish. They just about jump in the boat to help you out. And I said to Merrick, are there this many oysters around the other Gulf Islands? And he said, well, I think this is the only one where you have to climb over the oysters to get to your boat. And they were so big you had to cut them in half to eat them. I guess they looked like shoes, you know. It was a real paradise and so on, right? And there were 60 people on the whole island. It was an island the size and shape of Manhattan. 60 people living on board, right? It was just an extraordinary place to live. And things happened. Everybody knew everybody. There were romances and things like that. But the characters living on the, you can imagine people who choose to live on an island without electricity, right? And they wanted to put electricity in recently, the state of British Columbia, and they all refused and voted against it. We got generators, fuck off, right? Can you imagine that? We got panels. We don't want you people here. Yeah. Oh, just an extraordinary place, right? And it's just like, I'm so lucky, Dan. I've lived in such extraordinary places in my life, you know, like Mesquite. And we had a guy who'd come over from Texarkana Island, a huge island next door. Nobody living on it except him, I think. And he'd have, you know, tomatoes this big and cantaloupe this big and, you know, courgette this big. He had a technique. He'd put a starfish under each seed. Dig a hole, put a starfish, put a seed, and plant real late. June 1, I think, you plant. And Jesus, he'd come over and show off. He'd always have his little runabout full of, you know, he was a Ripley kind of guy. You could have got his stuff in Ripley every week, right? And then there was a guy named Earl, get this, all he had in the world was a 15-foot aluminum boat and a motor. So he just spent his time going around the shores of all the Gulf Islands on his little 15-footer. And every now and then he'd find a big log that belonged to nobody that got away from them, right? And these, again, are big as around as tank cars, and they're like 100, 150 feet long. I mean, half a football field. There's enough wood in there for 6 or 7 ranch houses, okay? They're probably worth $10,000. And with his little 15 horsepower motor, he takes it home, right? Then he gets another one, then he gets another one, then he gets another one. So he's got a little dock and he's got this raft, which is about the size of a small aircraft carrier. No, I'm exaggerating it. The size of a big PT boat, if you wish. But it's huge, man. Huge raft. And on the raft, he's got a platform made from all the boards he picked up. Right? And on the platform, guess what he's got to live in? A pup tent, right? He's been in a pup tent on this thing for 15 or 20 years up there. Can you imagine? Right? And someday he's going to call up the mill, and he's going to sell the thing and get 50 grand or 100 grand or something like that for it. Right?
Well, that would, huh?
Yeah.